come on. You know what? I'm sick of this D-pad. We're gonna replace this today. Stay tuned. So if you had a chance to see my original video on the G-Pi case, you'll know that I'm not a huge fan of the D-pad on this thing. Unfortunately, I've had a lot of time to play around with it now, and I can tell you I'm even less of a fan of this D-pad right now. It constantly gives you misclicks. Whenever you're trying to push down, it always jumps to the right, and unfortunately, it drives me nuts. So today, I'm going to go ahead and change this D-pad. Now, the way that they designed this thing is they modeled it after the Game Boy Pocket. So a D-pad from a Game Boy Pocket should be a direct replacement to the original D-pad inside of this case. However, it's a little difficult finding a black D-pad. I wanted to make sure that it looked as stock as possible, and it's easy finding these things in different colors all over the internet. However, I had a little bit of trouble finding a black one. I did find it in a button kit for the Playboy Pocket from a company called Handheld Legends. I'll go ahead and leave a link to it in the description. It was only about $6, and that was after shipping. I think the thing only cost me $2 total, and then I had to pay shipping on top of that, and it came pretty quick. So today, I'm going to show you how to tear down this G-Pi case so you can replace the D-pad. But first, if you like content like this, then please subscribe to my channel and hit the bell icon so you can be notified of future videos. And also, don't forget to like this video because it helps with the YouTube algorithm so other people can find my content. Now, without further ado, let's tear this thing apart. So if we pull our new buttons out, what comes in this kit right here are all the buttons for a Game Boy Pocket, but of course we're not going to need all of those because it has the A/B button and the power button for the Game Boy Pocket, and those, honestly, we're not going to need. All we're going to need is the D-pad itself. So now that we've got that, it's time to tear this thing apart so we can replace the D-pad. It's actually relatively easy to take apart. So what we're going to need to do is pull the back door off and pull the cartridge out. And then underneath, you're going to have 6 screws. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And once we remove those screws, we can open the case up. So let's do that now. So I'm going to get myself a Phillips screwdriver, and we're just going to pull this thing apart. It's always important to find a bit that fits the screw itself. You can easily strip screws if you use the improper bit. For this, I'm actually using the #1 Phillips bit from the iFixit kit. All right, so get as many of these screws out as you can. Some of them are going to get stuck into the case and you're not going to be able to get them out, and that's okay. All right, so now what we need to do is separate the case itself, and for this you're going to want to use an opening tool. I'm going to use the iFixit opening tool here, and what you do is you stick it in between the crack right here, and you just use it as a lever. You're going to want to go all the way around the case, and you want to be careful not to pull this thing apart too far because there's going to be a ribbon cable that attaches the circuit boards inside, and you'll see that once we get it apart. All right, so now that we have it separated, go ahead and put our tool away, and we're going to lift this top off, and as you can see here, there's a ribbon cable right here attaching the 2 circuit boards. I'm going to just roll this around, and then I'm actually going to separate this ribbon cable. All you have to do right here is pull up on this little bar right here. It moves in this direction, and once you do that, it'll free up the ribbon cable and you can move it out of the way. And that's what you're left with. So now we need to remove the screws on the circuit board so we can remove this also. All right, there's going to be 5 screws holding this thing together. So once you get the 5th screw out, it should be free. And to lift it out, what you're going to want to do is there's a micro USB port on the back of the motherboard here. And if you grab a hold of this thing, you can just lift this whole circuit board out. Make sure you keep track of the power button right there. And when you lift it out, you actually take the screen with it. So what I would recommend doing is setting this thing down face down on an area that isn't very dirty, so you don't get a lot of dust and stuff on the screen. And then you want to kind of avoid getting dust on the inside of the glass too. So this is the one we're interested in right here. This is the rubber portion of the D-pad. So we're going to take this part out and pull the D-pad out. So now, as you can see, the Game Boy Pocket D-pad is really close to the D-pad that comes in the GPI case. There's a little bit of differences to it. Like for instance, the Game Boy Pocket it's thicker on each connecting point, and it's a little bit lower too. So it's shorter than this one is. So all we have to do, there's an indexing slot on this one right here, but it's completely unimportant. So you can put it in any direction you want. So we're going to drop this D-pad into place and then put this rubber piece back in. And it's a good idea to try to not touch the black pads on the bottom of this rubber piece, because the oils from your finger can mess with the connectivity later on. So now we're going to take the motherboard, we're just going to drop it right back into place. And when we do, we want to make sure to put the power button back in. So we lift it up just slightly, set the power button back in, and we can rest it down back into its spot. And now we're going to go ahead and reinstall all the screws. When you're reinstalling these screws, you want to make sure not to put a screw in these two bottom slots, because those are actually for the screws for the outside of the case. All right, there we go. So now we need to reattach the ribbon cable. And to do that is just a reverse of when we took it off. You just take the ribbon cable, slide it back into place. Sometimes it can be a little bit difficult to get it lined up. Try to do it the right way, that helps. Okay, so once the ribbon cable is in here, then you're going to want to take this little bar right here and you're going to want to push it down. That actually tensions the cable into the socket. There you go, just like that. And now we can put these two halves back together. And when we do, we just want to make sure all the switches are in the right place and then push down and it should snap back together. And then reinstall all of the screws that we took out in the beginning. All right, now that the screws are in, we're going to go ahead and reinsert our cartridge, which has our Raspberry Pi Zero, and then we're going to install some batteries into this thing. And go ahead and fire it up. And there we go. It's starting to fire up now. So it's going to take a second to boot up, and once it boots up completely, I will go through and we'll play around with this new D-pad and see if it works better than the original. All right, now that we have this thing fired up, we'll go ahead and go into a game. As you can see here, the D-pad is working really well. Up and down work really well. One of the problems that I had before is when you would hit down, it would register right a lot. Not every time, but enough to kill me in many games. So you'd go to click the down button and it would actually move to the right instead. And it was quite annoying. So we're going to fire a game up here. Going to take a second for this game to fire up. All right, this is the game that I've been spending a lot of time in right now, and I can tell you this game right here was the whole reason for me replacing this D-pad. So when you hit down, it would move to the right, and it would happen constantly during gameplay. And it is working a lot better. If I could actually play, that would be nice. Oh yeah, much better. Definite improvement to the way it was before. This D-pad is way better than the original D-pad, and honestly, didn't really cost much to replace it. And that's all it takes to make this a much better handheld. This D-pad is way better than the original D-pad. The contours on the edges are a lot smoother, so when you're playing it for long periods of time, your thumb doesn't start killing you like the old one did. And honestly, in the time that I've been using it, I haven't gotten any false clicks on it. Now, that doesn't mean I'm not going to, but this one seems to be a lot more reliable than the original D-pad that came inside of this device in the first place. So, I really recommend doing this mod, and it doesn't cost a lot of money either. Like I said, it was about $6 for me to actually get the D-pad that I put into this thing. So I'll go ahead and leave a link to the D-pad that I bought for this one in the description below. Also, while I have you here, I have a website at cybercputech.com. That site has all the show notes to the videos that I have on this page, as well as someday I'm going to get around to selling my t-shirts on there. But in the meantime, you can always pick up my t-shirts in a link in the description below. And also, follow me on social media. I'm on Twitter at cybercpu, as well as Instagram at cybercpu as well. There, I post whenever my videos go live, and I also post a lot of memes. So go ahead and give me a follow. And if this video was helpful to you, then please like this video. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel. And hit that bell icon so you can be notified of future videos. I post a new video every week. And hey, before you go, check out a couple of these videos. Have a great day.